Coming up on this Friday edition of Newsline at noon, Korea's Navy and maritime police hold joint exercises to repel any foreign group trying to occupy Korea-controlled Dokdo islets days after Japan launched a video campaign claiming sovereignty of the islets. The Korean economy expands at the fastest pace in nearly 2 years in the July to September period, thanks to increases in investment and private consumption. In a conciliatory gesture, North Korea says it will release 6 South Korean detainees. Pyongyang will also allow South Korean lawmakers to cross the border to the jointly run Gaeseong factory zone next week. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul.
And I'm Daniel Chen. Thank you for joining us. We start with some positive news on the Korean economy.
There's signs the Korean economy is breaking out of a trap of low growth. It grew at its fastest pace in nearly 2 years in the third quarter of this year, bolstered by a recovery in consumer spending and a pickup in facility investment.
For more, we now connect live by phone to our Hwang Ji-hye at the nation's central bank. Hello there, Ji-hye.
Hello, Yusun Daniel. The Bank of Korea said this morning that the nation's gross domestic product rose 3.3% in the July to September period from a year earlier, the fastest pace of expansion in nearly 2 years. It is also the first time the growth has topped 3% since the end of 2011. What's probably more noteworthy is that the economy grew 1.1% in the quarter from the previous quarter when it gained at the same pace. It's significant because the economy's quarter-on-quarter growth remained below 1% for more than 2 years until early this year. The recovery was largely thanks to a rise in facility investment and improving domestic demand. Facility investment rose 1.2% last quarter after a 0.2% fall in the April to June period. Private consumption rose 1.1%, quickening from a 0.7% gain in the second quarter. But Korea's exports, which account for half of the nation's GDP, dropped 0.9% from the previous quarter, following a 1.8% expansion in the second quarter. The central bank attributed the drop to fewer working days in September due to the national holiday, Chuseok. Guys?
All right, Jie, thank you for that. That was our economics correspondent Hwang Jie reporting live from the Bank of Korea.
Moving on to other stories, another positive one. In fact, Pyongyang has notified Seoul that it will return 6 South Korean detainees home this afternoon.
While little is known about when and how they first ended up north of the border, attention is being drawn to North Korea's motivations for the move. Our Han Da-eun reports.
The Unification Ministry has announced that Pyongyang's Red Cross sent an official letter saying it will return 6 South Koreans Friday afternoon across the border at the truce village of Panmunjom. The ministry says they're scheduled to be handed over to South Korean authorities at 4:20 p.m. local time. All of them, identified only by their last names, are men and range in age from 27 and 67. But little else is known about them, and an investigation to determine their full identities and how and why they crossed the border to the north in the first place will begin once they set foot on South Korean soil. Officials presume that group includes 4 South Koreans who were reported to have been detained in the north since 2010. The North's official Korean Central News Agency had reported in February 2010 that they were investigating 4 South Koreans for illegally having entered their country. Officials added that it's fortunate that Pyongyang has made such a decision from a humanitarian standpoint. The move comes after North Korea approved a visit by South Korean lawmakers to the joint industrial park at Gaeseong, where operations recently resumed. With these unexpected friendly gestures from the North, much attention is being drawn to their intentions. Some experts say the reclusive state is making the moves as bargaining chips to attain parallel offers from the South Korean government, such as the return of North Korean defectors. Others argue that Pyongyang may simply be seeking a breakthrough in strained inter-Korean relations before reopening dialogue with other regional neighbors. 한단, Arirang News.
Handling North Korea's nuclear ambitions was at the top of the agenda when the top presidential security aides of South Korea and the U.S. held talks in Washington on Thursday. The two allies also reaffirmed their shared position on the scheduled U.S. transfer of military operational control to the South. Our Song Ji-sun has more.
The door is open, but no provocations will be tolerated. That's the common ground shared by Seoul and Washington regarding Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions. South Korea's chief presidential national security aide Kim Jang-soo and his U.S. counterpart Susan Rice met at the White House on Thursday and agreed that the allies will deal sternly with any North Korean provocations, but also said the door to dialogue remains open should Pyongyang take sincere steps toward denuclearization. The two presidential aides also agreed to establish a hotline, discuss North Korea issues and other matters of concern, and added that Beijing's assistance is crucial in dealing with Pyongyang. In regard to the transfer of operational control of Korean forces during times of war, both sides agreed to reach a deal on the timeline and conditions by June 2014. Seoul has proposed a delay in the schedule set for December 2015, saying it needs more time to prepare to take a leading role in a potential war with North Korea. This is the first time the two presidential security aides have held talks since Kim took office in March and Rice in July. Kim is scheduled to meet with U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel and Secretary of State John Kerry on Friday. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Today is Dokdo Day here in Korea. It was 113 years ago when the Korean Empire proclaimed the rocky Dokdo islets in the East Sea as Korean territory. In line with Japan's repeated claims over the islets, the Korean Navy and Coast Guard carried out a joint exercise near Dokdo. Our Kim Yeon-ji has the story.
The Korean Navy and Coast Guard conducted a military exercise near the nation's Dokdo islets on Friday, marking Dokdo Day. The drill, involving the Navy's underwater demolition team and the Air Force's F-15K combat jets, was held under a scenario in which other countries approach and illegally land on the rocky islets. The drill is viewed as being a message to Japan, which claims sovereignty over Dokdo. The Japanese Foreign Ministry launched a video campaign last week to promote its colonial claim to Korea's Dokdo islets. The 89-second video, posted on the ministry website and YouTube, claims that Japan established territorial sovereignty over the islets in the 17th century, and that the Japanese cabinet made it official in 1905. The video is titled Takeshima, which is what the Japanese call Dokdo.
In early 1900s, the fishing industry around Takeshima kicked into high gear. In 1905, the Japanese cabinet reaffirmed its sovereignty over Takeshima.
Seoul's foreign ministry demanded Tokyo take down the video that promotes the Korea-controlled Dokdo islets as its own. But Japan won't budge.
Regrettably, the Japanese government has refused to remove the video. Tokyo must immediately stop making claims that are historically inaccurate.
Seoul's foreign ministry spokesperson also stressed that Japan's anachronistic provocations are the reason bilateral relations remain in the doldrums. Japan also claims sovereignty over Dokdo in its defense white paper and school textbooks. The Korean government is mulling over to what level it should elevate its campaign to counter Tokyo's claims. Experts say Korea needs to lay out why Dokdo is Korean territory based on international law in a simple and clear manner, just as Japan summarized its arguments in the short video. Meanwhile, Japan plans to make another video by the end of the year promoting the term Sea of Japan for the body of water that divides Korea and Japan. Seoul calls the water the East Sea. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Early voting for the upcoming October 30th by-election started this Friday and will continue through Saturday from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. in the Gyeonggi and North Gyeongsang provinces. The early voting system allows people to cast their ballots in advance so that those who are expected to be busy or away on election day can still exercise their right to vote. The system was first implemented in the by-elections this past April, rather. 2 seats are up for grabs this time around, and experts say the results could be interpreted as litmus tests for the first 8 months of the Park Geun-hye administration.
For your fill of Korean and international news. Join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
Bank of Korea Governor Kim Jung-soo says Korea should sign more currency swap deals with other countries. At a meeting with the presidents of several domestic banks on Friday, Kim said the nation's recent currency swap deals represent just a small step towards internationalizing the Korean won. He said Korea should follow the footsteps of China, which has currency swap deals with 23 countries. Korea recently signed and agreed to 3 currency swap deals with the United Arab Emirates, Malaysia, and Indonesia. The rapid appreciation of the Korean won is weighing on Korean exporters. Many small and mid-sized firms complain rising production costs mean they will probably post losses no matter how much they export their products. Our Kim Hyun-gil has more.
This is a Korean company making cases for mobile phones. The company ships 80% of its products overseas, and its exports so far this year have jumped 30% from last year. But company officials say growing exports won't necessarily translate into profits because the strength in the local currency is increasing production costs. The company had expected the won to trade at an average of 1,100 won against the dollar for this year, but the Korean currency has strengthened way beyond the level, hovering at around 1,061.
The wild fluctuation of the won makes it hard for us to make business plans.
A survey by the Korea Federation of Small and Medium Business shows Korea's big companies expect their profits to be wiped out if this year's average $1 exchange rate reaches 1,061. Many small and mid-sized Korean firms say the local currency's strength is already pushing them into the red.
Small and mid-sized companies should consider hedging against currency fluctuations by buying insurance or options.
Small and mid-sized Korean exporters are not upbeat despite a recovery in the export market, as the strong won is eroding the price competitiveness of their products against foreign rivals. Kim Hyun-gil, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics posted yet another record in operating profit in the third quarter on the back of higher chip prices and sales of its mobile devices. During the July to September period, the company's operating profit spiked by over 26% from a year earlier to roughly $959 million. Profits from Samsung's chip sector doubled to about $1.8 billion, the highest level in 3 years. The tech giant's mobile division, its biggest earning generator, also rose to a new record high on boosted shipments of its cheaper Galaxy smartphones, countering slow growth in the high-end segment. Apparently, Korea might not be the best place for women. Korea has again ranked among the lowest in the world in gender equality, a clear indicator that the country needs to step up efforts to bolster women's participation in the economy, grant greater access to health and welfare, and educational opportunities. Our Son Jung-in has more on this story.
South Korea's gender equality ranking has slipped 3 notches this year to 111th, putting it on par with Middle Eastern countries such as the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Qatar. The World Economic Forum's latest Global Gender Gap Report surveyed 136 countries in 4 categories: health, education, economic participation, and political empowerment, and analyzed the situations of women in each country based on 14 categories, including access to economic opportunities, life expectancy, and the number of female cabinet members in their governments. In terms of women's economic participation, Korea ranked 118th, down 2 notches from a year earlier. Korea's rankings in women's education, health, and political activity were 100th, 75th, and 86th respectively. Iceland topped the list as the most advanced country in the world in terms of gender equality for the 5th year running, followed by the other Scandinavian countries of Finland and Norway. In contrast, Chad, Pakistan, and Yemen received the lowest marks. Among major world economies, Germany ranked 14th, Britain was at 18th, and the United States 23rd. The rankings show that South Korea's gender gap still runs deep, and it remains to be seen whether the country's first female president will help pave the way for greater rights for women in the future. 손정인, Arirang News.
Allegations that the U.S. has been spying on citizens and officials in Europe are overshadowing regional economic and social issues at a leaders' summit in Brussels. The latest revelations are likely to have a negative effect on Washington's trade negotiations with the European Union. Our Connie Lee has more.
The United States' alleged spying activity has angered many of the European Union leaders arriving on Thursday for a 2-day summit in Brussels. The EU leaders who spoke with the media were not shy about voicing their concerns.
We cannot accept this systematic spying, whatever it may be. We need to take measures, and I can't imagine measures only at the national level.
The major issue at the moment is that we know the truth, what has happened. I don't like that the European decision makers are listened and nobody likes it.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel, speaking on the recent allegation that the U.S. tapped her mobile phone, said the surveillance activity is unacceptable and says her trust with the U.S. has been broken.
This isn't predominantly about me, it's about all German citizens. We need to have faith in our allies and partners, and this trust now has to be established once again.
The White House has not confirmed whether or not Merkel's phone had been tapped in the past, but said it is not doing so now and that it will not happen in the future.
The President spoke with Chancellor Merkel, reassured her that the United States is not and will not monitor the Chancellor's communications.
Meanwhile, the UK's Guardian newspaper reported on Thursday that the U.S. National Security Agency monitored the calls of 35 foreign leaders. The report, based on a memo leaked by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden, shows that more than 200 telephone numbers, including those of world leaders, were handed to the NSA. U.S. officials have yet to comment on this latest leak. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
The White House is pushing to delay a new Iran sanctions bill to give continuing nuclear talks in Geneva and conciliatory gestures by Iran's new leader time to work. Reuters reported the White House invited a group of Senate aides to a meeting Thursday in which a sanctions delay was discussed. The news outlet said it could not, however, confirm the discussion took place. The sanctions bill is scheduled to come up in the Senate Banking Committee next week following a delayed vote last month, and the new sanctions could severely curtail Iran's already weakened oil exports. But the White House is already facing resistance from Senate Republicans, some of whom have called for tougher sanctions based on the argument that sanctions are the reason why Tehran agrees to negotiate.
In what is likely to be the grand finale of a scandal that has gripped China, a Chinese court has rejected the appeal of fallen politician Bo Xilai on this Friday. The Shandong Province Supreme People's Court in Jinnan Province, China, upheld the life sentence for the former Chongqing Communist Party leader in a ruling that was widely expected. Bo was sentenced to life in prison in September on charges of embezzlement, bribery, and abuse of power for charges related to his wife's murder of a British businessman. The Jinan court's ruling is final with no chance for further appeal. Bo can also file a complaint with the Supreme People's Court in Beijing, but most experts say the chance of another hearing are slim. Many of us grew up envisioning the 21st century as an era of convenience where robots do all our chores and make lives easier. Well, the future is now at a special event that's being held in Goyang. Our Kim Min-ji takes us there and shows us what role robots may play.
A robot enters a disaster site that is unapproachable by humans and closes a valve that is emitting toxic gas. This is Dormang, a Korean-made rescue robot that is being recognized globally for its sophisticated maneuvers.
I believe robots like Dormang, robots that can execute rescue operations to save humans, will be available in 10 years.
This robot carries out reconnaissance operations in dangerous military zones in the place of soldiers and can even shoot as it moves. Some mechanical robots are even programmed to make cars, while this one is able to carry out a medical operation on a complex fracture with the assistance of just one doctor. These are just some of the robots on display this year at the Robot World 2013, one of the biggest international robot shows consisting of exhibitions, contests, and conferences. Some 150 companies are taking part this year.
Many products have been researched and developed. There needs to be a market in order for these products to be profitable. I believe this event will provide an opportunity to boost demand.
The event is also offering an arena for young competitors to show off their self-made robots.
I want to make a robot that carry out complex operations that cannot be done using the human hand.
The event, which runs through Sunday at the Korea Exhibition Center in Goyang, Gyeonggi Province, gives people a look into the future when these figures that were once a fixture of science fiction may be part of our everyday lives. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, it's getting colder and colder here for us in the capital city of Seoul. Let's find out if things are going to warm up a little bit over the weekend by checking in with our weathercaster, Lee Ji-hyun. Hello there.
Happy Friday, guys. Now, the first thing I said when I stepped outside this morning was, oh boy, it's so cold. And it looks like it's going to stay that way throughout the weekend.
Well, Jian, you told us earlier that this weekend should be the peak foliage season.
Right,
so
right.
I guess mountains around the country will be packed with hikers this weekend.
Definitely. And if you're going to be hiking this weekend, make sure to bundle up and prepare snacks to keep your energy levels up. Chocolate bar, nuts, and fruits are recommended snacks for hikers, so please keep that in mind and enjoy your hiking trip. Well, as for today's weather, on top of being chilly, it's also quite windy, but the day will be sunny around the peninsula today. Now, it looks like the colder air will stick with us for a while. Afternoon highs will only make it into the mid-teens tomorrow, so Saturday will be chillier than today, but Sunday should be slightly warmer. Aside from the chilly temperatures, the weather forecast for this weekend is looking great. Lots of sunshine is on tap, so overall we are looking good for all the activities going on this weekend. With that in mind, let's take a look at the readings for today. The current reading in Seoul is about 10 degrees Celsius, and it will rise to 14 degrees Celsius later on, while Daegu and Gwangju will soar to upper teens, and Busan reaches 21 degrees Celsius with lots of sunshine. Now let's see how other regions are looking. Jeju, Daejeon, and Dokdo will hit similar daily highs at 16 and 17, while Mount Kumgang will stay in the double digit today at 11. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me this week. Enjoy your lunch break and hope you have a wonderful weekend. Now back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you for that, Jian. That's all from us, and that's it from me for this week. Mark Broom will be right back where he belongs next Monday. Do catch up with what's been happening on our website, arirangtv.com/news.
Thank you for watching, and do stay with Arirang TV for more on the day's headlines.